No, I don't think so.
I'm just...
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Spotlight, a public affairs program featuring conversations about life in the central San Joaquin Valley. This program is brought to you in partnership between KFSR 90.7 FM and CMAC Fresno. I'm your host, Sevag Tateosian. Today, we have Lorenzo Neal in the studio. Lorenzo is a former athlete from the NFL, and now he's in town giving back to his community. Lorenzo, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. I hear you're doing some cool stuff in the community, going out there and teaching kids about anti-bullying.
Yeah, no question. I think that now if you look at what's going on in the world we live in, it's constantly changing, especially for our youth with social networking and Twitter and Facebook and the different things that our children and our youth are faced with. It's a challenging times. And so I think that it's great to be able to go out into the community and be able to tell some of these young men and these young ladies and young boys and these young kids and tell them about life experience and let them know, hey, look, you are somebody. You do have a voice. You own your own brand, and you have to protect it.
Before we talk a little bit more about what you're doing now, let's talk about the history of Lorenzo Neal. I'm going to take you back today. We're going back to the first time you realized you wanted to play football. When was that?
Wow, I'm pretty old now. I don't know if I can remember that back far back. But you know what? I've always loved football. When you're a young kid playing in the backyard, you know, watching, you know, the Chuck Muncies and the Kellen Winslows and the Dan Fowkes, the Chargers, you know, and Roger Staubach and the 70s, and watching all these great players, and you're that young kid, and you dreamed. I think every young kid, they dream and they get in the backyard and, you know, and they pretend they're Michael Jordan, whether it's Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or LaDainian Tomlinson, you know, you name it. Every young kid today dreams. The ones that are wanting to become athletes, and some becomes reality, and one day, you know, and sometimes it becomes reality, and sometimes it doesn't. But trust me, Kobe Bryant, he was in the backyard one day. Michael Jordan, he was in the backyard one day watching different players, and it's interesting how if you really, really work at it, and you really, really push hard, sometimes your dreams can become reality. So for me, it was, you know, from a small town, Lemoore, California, and watching guys play. You know, I was a big boxing fan and watching Muhammad Ali in the early, you know, in the 70s, watching, you know, Lubes. And my dad loved boxing, and watching Ernie Shaver and Big John Tate, and watching so many boxing matches, and, you know, Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, and just come from a family that just really, really loved sports, and especially the community. That was a small little agriculture town, Lemoore, California, that's really, really loaded with great athletes and entrepreneurs that are doing phenomenal things in the valley. If you think about the different athletes that came from Lemoore, Larry Jones, Lawrence Jones, both played in the National Football League. Charlie Jones, Tommy Jones went on to play in the National Football League. Tommy Smith, the '64 Olympics, the movement, you know, when we're going through the racial movement, you know, with Black Power on the Olympic stand. So if you look at, you know, we had Rick Springstead, you know, Journey, you know, from Hanford and Lemoore. So if you think about all these guys and women that from a very, very small town and want to be very, very successful and left their mark and made some type of legacy, it's pretty phenomenal.
In high school, did you ever think you're going to make it to the NFL? I mean, it's a pretty prestigious thing to do, to get to the NFL. You've done it. But in high school, did you think that that's where you're going to end up?
Sure, that's an interesting question. I think that in 8th grade, I had in my time capsule, I remember I put that I wanted to go to Nebraska and play for the San Diego Chargers. And Tim Wall was one of my school teachers at Central High School. And he reminded me of that a while back, and I was like, wow, did I really? So, you know, when you're young, you know, when you dream, it's okay to dream, but it's really great when you can put actions to the dream. And that's what my thing is when I go out and do certain things. It's about saying, hey, have a plan. If you have a goal, and your goal is to lift 500 pounds, if you jump underneath that 500-pound rack and load 500 pounds and say, my goal and my dream is to lift 500 pounds, you probably won't ever lift it again. You probably won't ever lift it again or live to tell about it, because you're probably going to kill yourself. So I think that you have to have a plan. And it's got to be a plan that's got to be decisive. It's got to have a, you know, an action plan. a plan that I'm going to get up, I'm going to work out, I'm going to get a regimen, I'm going to, try to chase greatness and try to work at a very, very high level to become that great athlete. And for me, 7th and 8th grade, there was guys that were bigger, faster, stronger, and I got in the weight room, and my dad was a farmer, and so getting up every morning, feeding the pigs, and working on a farm, it just kind of pushed me. Then you got in high school, and you said, okay, as a freshman, you go up to JV, and as a sophomore, you start playing varsity, and you're like, okay, wow. And people are saying, hey, look, you have a chance. You got to, do well in school. Go, start taking these college prep classes. Get ready, because I think you can go play D1 football and, wrestling. And then you start to dream a little bit. You say, man, your first dream is always a far dream, is to say, I want to play in the NFL. But then when you get in, high school, your dream then is, God, I got to go to college, because you got to go to college before you get to NFL. So there's got to be a process to your dreams, a process to your goals as you go. And so it was interesting, getting in high school, and then became reality, start getting letters, and, won the state of California, went on to be California Athlete of the Year, and, colleges was coming, and you're like, wow. Then you go to Fresno State, and, you sit with Jim Sweeney, and you're like, okay, now the next step is pros. And it was interesting. I remember Coach Sweeney, he said, Lorenzo, you're a guy that can play on Sundays. And I remember Jim Sweeney telling me that, and, got in the weight room even harder. Start lifting, start working out even harder, because, I knew that next step would even be harder. So it was a process. It was a long, tedious process, and you have to walk that process alone. People can talk to you and tell you certain things, but ultimately it comes down to you as an individual.
You mentioned a lot of things that I want to talk about in this program, but Jim Sweeney, his passing, is it going to affect players today?
No questions. I think what Jim Sweeney was a legacy hunter. Jim Sweeney was a guy who's phenomenal. What he did for Fresno and this community, he was a pillar. Guy was a coal miner. Dad was a coal miner. Come from a coal miner family. But Jim Sweeney will never be forgotten. Kevin Sweeney here in town worked with Wells Fargo Bank, and his his sisters and brothers. The Sweeney family is just an amazing people and done so much for this community. You think about Fresno State wasn't even here when Jim Sweeney came. They were playing in Ratcliffe Stadium. So this guy had a dream, went out and became one of the largest community fundraising coaches around, who said, you know what, I have a dream. I'm going to build on my dream, and I'm going to make it happen. And this guy put a plan in action, and Coach Sweeney built that stadium, grabbing people, getting people to boosters and people in the community to get behind him. And I remember the first phase of the building, he was like, if you build it, they will come. That was his, our slogan. And I'll tell you, if you win, they will come. And he believed that, and he built that. And Coach Sweeney just done a phenomenal job for Fresno, for the community, for the Valley, for the state, for a nation. This guy was a football legend, a football god, if you please. And he had a great deal of respect throughout the country.
He did. A lot of people still talk about him to this day. Lorenzo, I want to talk about what you mentioned earlier, your father and the farm. So did you come from a family that was affluent, or did you come from a family that was not so affluent? And the reason I want to ask you the question is because there are a lot of kids out there with the dream to make it to the NFL, but that are coming from low-income households.
Yeah, I don't think it's where you come from, it's where you're at. And I tell kids and I tell people and adults, I said, it's because your condition, maybe a single family home, maybe you don't know your dad, maybe you don't have a mother, maybe you live with your grandparents, maybe you don't know where your next meal is coming from, or maybe you're just a gifted kid that, that has everything. Parents, mom, dad, money, all the things that you want. And a lot of those kids become spoiled and inundated because they don't have to work. And then there's a lot of kids that have been very, very fortunate that even worked harder because they want to show their parents and search for approval and acceptance to say, look, I appreciate what you did for me. So I tell kids all the time, don't let your condition, whether it's on this side of the tracks or the other side of the tracks, don't let your condition dictate your position in life. So with me, it's just, middle of the road, middle of the track. Dad, was minister. Also, we were in farming. Mom worked hard, and we didn't miss any meals, as you can tell. But it was a good family, a lot of love. It was a family of 6. We was raised, had 40, 50 acres and raising farm, raised on a farm, planting cotton, corn, doing it all. So come from a family just, with a hardworking family and just like I said, middle of the tracks and been very, very blessed and very, very fortunate to have a mother and father that really did a lot for us and pushed us and told us to reach our full potential.
What motivated you to do what you're going to do? You're a very motivated person, I could tell. What motivated you as a child to say, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to take my work to the next level?
I think for me, it was just my parents. Seeing those two work hard and go without to make sure that we didn't go without. Also, just having good people, surrounding yourself with good people, having good friends, high school friends, grade school friends, Matt Mahoney, and guys that I went to school with that came from good families that said, hey, let's work. Having a group of guys that had the same desire that you had. And it was just the fact that you said, hey, you know what? I want more. I don't want to just necessarily stay on the farm and take over and do that. I dreamed because I love, that ball in my hand. I love to be able to be out with the guys and play. And when you're a grown man and you're a kid and you can play a kid's game forever or for a long time and get, grown man play a kid's game and get a king's ransom, it's not so bad. So as long as you understand that it's a gift, you understand that it's not yours, you understand that it's only for a season. You got to understand all those things that come with it. And if you don't work, you can't. You won't keep it, because working will, wishing won't. And when you ask those questions about, where'd that come from? I remember my grandmother. She was 97 when she passed. And I remember, I think it was 1989, graduating from high school and watching her work all the time. And I remember, I was just received some high accolades. I was I was All Valley, I was league champion, I was Northern Valley champion, I was Northern California Athlete of the Year, and then I was State California Athlete of the Year. And so, it's pretty not bad feat for a little country boy, come from a town at 12,000 at the time. I remember my grandmother, she brought me in the house. She said, come here, I'm gonna give you a graduation present. And I looked out in the garage and I was like, oh God, my grandma had an old 63 Cutlass, beat up old car. And she said, I came in, I said, oh no. She goes, don't worry, I'm not gonna give you this car. I was like, phew. That was a relief. But she sat down and my grandmother just gave me some wisdom. I thought she was gonna give me money and stuff, but she gave me life. She gave me wisdom. She talked about how she came from Fort Worth, Texas, her and my grandfather. And she was, in the cotton fields, and she worked hard, and she was a foreman. And she talked about she served about 25 people that was under her, and she worked hard, and she was a foreman, so she was a supervisor. And she talked about being pregnant. Remember, she was telling me she was pregnant with my Uncle Joe. She had 7 kids, 6 boys, 1 girl. And she tells me, she went to work and on Wednesday, and after work she was hurting, and she ended up having my Uncle Joe in the wee hours of the morning on Thursday, and she took that day off. And on Friday she went back to work, and I said, Grandma, why did you go back to work? Why didn't you just wait till Monday? And she said, son, never take a vacation when the boss is around. I said, why not, Grandma? She said, they'll realize how much they don't need you. So I was like, wow. And at the time I kind of chuckled, and it took me a while to really get that. But then when I think that helped me in college, when I saw guys that were hurting, but they didn't persevere through, got in the NFL, and watching guys when the average lifespan of the NFL player is 2 to 3 years, and watching guys because of injuries or because of a little injury and not able to go, saw them lose their jobs. And I was always, okay, can't take vacation, boss around.
Yeah.
I don't need you. And because when you take that break, people are ready to step up in your position. So you got to always stay hungry. So that was one of the things that motivated me at a young age.
Do you find that more so in sports and in the NFL? I mean, it sounds like when you get to professional athletes, there's always somebody that wants that front starter position.
I think it's in life too. I think that, there's millions of Americans out there right now that are suffering, that are educated, college educated, that have degrees, MBAs, masters, doctorates, and can't find work. And they would do anything to have that opportunity to be able to work. So when you say, does it happen with the athletes? I think, no. I think it's in the real world. Every day someone's getting fired, someone's getting promoted, but ours is just so polarized because of the fact that it's national TV, it's newspaper worthy. But there's millions of people out there that, you know, that are looking for jobs, that are looking for work, that are looking for a way to support their family and can't find it. So it's interesting that you say that, but no, in athletes, it's just the window is so infinitesimal, so much smaller, because you can't do it forever.
Have you always been in great shape? I mean, you're retired now, and you're still muscular, and you look like an athlete. Have you always been in this great shape?
You know what? I'm not in great shape like I should be, and I do still train and try to stay in shape and just try to keep the bones moving, keep the body moving, because if you don't use it, you lose it. So I'm going to keep trying to use it, but I do try to take, you know, pride in making sure that I work hard to keep my body there.
I want to talk about college. Your first college game. Lorenzo Neal is on the field. What is Lorenzo Neal thinking as he's looking around and seeing an audience there?
Yeah, it's interesting because you go in the game. I remember I was not starting at the time, and Eric Martin was a guy in Fresno, a good friend of mine, and you know, just waiting to call your number. You're fired up, and I remember they called me. Hello, get in there, Coach Sweeney. Got me in the game, and first play I think I caught like a little flare pass, and I caught the ball, ran over the linebacker. I'm dragging a guy, and sidelines going crazy. And ever since that moment that you had, that you say, you know what, I belong here. I can do this. And even though you knew you were just as strong and just as fast as all those cats when growing up, to actually make it happen, that makes you say, God, I do belong here. And that feeling you had, I say that with a great deal of trepidation, that I was just elated when it was a successful play, and it just made you say, "Wow, I belong in this league. I belong on this college level, and I'm going to stay here." And it was a great feeling.
So I want to fast forward time to the time you realized that it's draft day. Did you know you're going to get drafted, and what did that feel like?
Yeah, you know, by the end of your junior year, you think, okay, I got a chance because scouts are coming in and coach is talking to you. Coach Sweeney is having those deep conversations. Goes something like this. Hey, look, Lorenzo, you're a leader. You better get to practice and you better be working hard. You got it good. Listen, I don't care. You're going to go make some real money. You better start training. And you had this guy that was a father figure, you know, Jim, an imposing guy who would literally come out there and throw blows with you. So when you had a guy like that get in your face and say, look, I'm not going to let you lose this opportunity. I won't let you lose this. And I would look at Coach and pretty much was saying, I got you, Coach. I won't let you lose. And Coach Sweeney just put that in me and instilled it in me my junior year, and then senior year, he's like, hey, it's going to happen. And then, you know, your draft day comes, I'm at home, and I'm there, and in the morning, you know, I get a phone call like 20 minutes before the draft, and it's the Kansas City Chiefs. And, you know, I worked out, I ran a 4.58 for them, and I did 225 40 times for them. So they're like, Lorenzo, hey, look, we don't think you're going to be there, but if you're there, we're going to get you in the second round. It was like the 56th pick, you know, second round. And if you're there, so I said, okay. But they said, you know, we don't know if you're going to be there. We're just going to make sure we got your right information. We really like you. If you're there, we're going to get you. And I was like, wow, okay, I'm going to Kansas City. This is, you know. So, you know, with the draft starts and you're thinking maybe you're going to even go earlier because they said if you're there. So the pick comes, you know, for Kansas City. And I'm thinking, okay, here I go. I'm going to go to Kansas City. They were talking to me this morning. They pick not Lorenzo Neal.
So they pick somebody else.
Pick Will Shields, who found out to be a fine player, who ended up playing, you know, 16 years, a great player, great offensive guard, possibly a Hall of Famer type of guy as well, Will Shields. And I'm like, oh, my God. So I didn't go to, so I had to, you got to realize that was the second round. Third round goes by. I was finally picked, fourth round, but it was, you know, it wasn't that was still the first day. I was the 87th pick overall in the draft, but 84th pick overall in the draft. So it was still, you know, a little disappointing. So you kind of go into camp with that chip on your shoulder and say, okay, all you guys that didn't pick me, I'm going to make you feel bad that you didn't. I'm going to make you suffer. I'm going to make you apologize.
And let's talk about the NFL. So you get to the NFL, your first game at the NFL. Was it like college? I mean, the crowd, the audience, the stadium?
No.
Or is it completely different?
Completely different. When you're in the NFL, you're with the big boys, and you step on the field, and I'm on the field, and I see Von Johnson, Ricky Jackson, Sam Mills, guys that you looked up to. You got to realize guys that when you're in 8th grade and 5th and 6th grade, you were watching playing because those guys were played forever. Dalton Hilliard. Think about it. You're a freshman in high school, and 4 and 4 is 8. So a guy in his 8th year, think about you're in your freshman year in high school, you're watching these guys. Even some of them that played even longer. But you think about that, you're very impressionable. So in 8th grade and 9th grade, you're watching these guys when they get drafted. 8 years later, you said, "Oh my God, I'm on the field with you. I'm playing with you." So it was really, really, for me, it was just exciting. And as a rookie, it's different because they get on you. And it was a lot different. They used to haze you and really get on you. So it was different.
And then in the NFL, is it like we see on TV? I mean, sometimes the movies portray the athletes as after the game, they're going partying, they're going out in the city that they're at, having a great time, or is it more serious?
I think it depends on the individuals. No, trust me, even in college after a game, guys get together, have a couple pops or whatever. Even in the pros, some guys going out, you hang out, go out, but I've never seen guys go and cut a bus open. And I've seen, what's the movie Training? I don't know what it is, where Lawrence Taylor gets on a car and brings a saw. I've never seen that, and cocaine all over the place. I know that those things happen, but I was never, I've never been privileged to seeing that kind of behavior. But no, sometimes after a game you're sore. Most guys after a game you really want to get something to eat, and because you just played a tough game. So usually grab something to eat, and maybe the guys call you and say, hey, let's go meet, grab a beer or something, sit and chat. You do that, but when you're young, first when you get there in the NFL. Yeah, you go out and hang out and go party, but you're still working. You got to, and coaches always tell you, say, look, guys, we don't mind you having a good time, but this is your job. This isn't college. You got a job. You have to get up in the morning. You can't, college, you go out and hang out. You can miss a class and make up the test. This is the pros. And you miss a meeting, $5,000.
Wow.
You miss the whole day, can be a whole game check because it's called conduct detrimental to the team. So it's a real business.
Do you sometimes wake up and say, is this really happening? Because, I mean, NFL, when people, you have a lot of fans watching, you have a lot of kids watching, NFL is on TV all the time. Do you sometimes wake up and think, that couldn't happen? That wasn't me? I didn't live that life?
No. I'm reminded of it constantly, just people and people you meet, lives you're able to touch. No, when you look at it while you're in it, it's your job. This is what you do. It's a profession that, you played it, and it chose you. You chose it, and it chose you. And a lot of guys choose it, and it doesn't choose them. So it's a privilege to play. And when you're in the game, it's not about how much TV and who's watching. It's about doing your job.
Let's talk a little bit about giving back and why that's so important. I mean, you're retired. You could have easily been on an island somewhere. You could have easily been in Europe somewhere, but you came back to where you played football, college, Fresno, and you're giving back. Why do you do it?
It's such a need. I think that more athletes need to get involved with community. I look at downtown Fresno, look at United Way, a Shape Up program, and I bring out the kids and with United Way and help with things that you do, and really able to help young men and young women live healthier lives. Being able to give them the opportunity to be around other athletes and other people that are college athletes, pro athletes, that are thriving to make difference and make change, and it's needed. And you know what, you got to realize a lot of these young men, if you don't do that, these young ladies, they'll never see a professional athlete. They think that it's far-fetched. They just see them from a distance. It can't happen to me. And all we do is just try to bring a little hope to them. Try to say, you know what, you can do it. You are somebody with a dream. You are someone that can be successful. If it is to be, it's up to me. You can achieve only if you dream, and you can only dream if you believe in yourself. So I just tell people, you know, keep dreaming, keep achieving, and that's what it's about. And when you give back and you give that ray of hope to these young men and young ladies, and to see their face and the smile, and you look them in the eyes and say, look, even though you're flat on your back, if you can look up, then you can get up. That's what it's about.
When people see you out in public, obviously they recognize you. When they come up and talk to you, does that bother you? I mean, sometimes we hear in the tabloids and we hear in the media that an actor or an actress or an athlete gave somebody attitude or walked away from somebody. If someone sees you out there and realizes it's Lorenzo Neal, do you welcome them to say hello to you?
Yeah, I do. And you know, I don't, you know, I'm my own person. I can't control what others do. But a lot of people are more famous than Lorenzo Neal, and some of them have a, and some, they do get a little frustrated with it, and sometimes rightfully so. I've seen guys, having dinner, and a parent, not knowingly just sends their kid up there where they're eating dinner with their wife, or right in the middle of them with the fork and stuff. It's kind of tough. I mean, these people, they do want their privacy, and we want our privacy. But for me, it's like, you know what? If these young men and these young women, or these moms and dads, you touch them, and for them to be able to look at you and feel they can touch you and come up to you, and they believe that, hey, they feel that they're a part of you, and that's why they're willing to walk up to you. Your mom and dad always tell you when you're growing up, don't walk up and don't talk to strangers. But these kids and these parents, they feel compelled to just walk up and talk to a complete stranger because of what we do. So that means we do have an obligation to help these people out.
Lorenzo, we are running out of time this week on the program, but what's next for you? I mean, you played great in high school. You got state recognition for a lot of the things you were doing. You went and played college football. You made it to the NFL. You got drafted in an early round. What's next? It sounds like you've accomplished everything.
Yeah, for me, I can never go back and pound my chest and get back to the NFL. I've done it. I've lived my dream. But at the same sense now, it's not about that. It's about legacy hunting. What is my legacy? I've done a phenomenal job of leaving a legacy in the National Football League, playing a game of football. But I'm legacy hunting about something bigger than me. How many lives that I'm going to touch? How many people that I'm going to lead to a higher power? How many young men and young women that say, man, I met that man? That's what it's about for me. It's about me serving now and leaving a legacy that people remember.
Last thing, what do you want our audience to know about you?
That I'm a loving person. And anytime you see me, come up and say hi.
That's all for this edition of San Joaquin Spotlight. Special thanks to the volunteer crew that made this production possible. Thanks to 90.7 FM KFSR Fresno. Thank you to CMAX Studios. And also thank you to our guest, Lorenzo Neal.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the program this week.
Thank you for having me.
That's all for this edition. Tune in next week for a new edition.